What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. And something got whacked out with my audio, so let me know if you guys are hearing me all right. I don't know what I did wrong. Oh well, I'll figure it out one way or the only other. Blah 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 blah. Welcome back, everybody, to a Thursday night live tuning show. We've got a big crowd in here already. People are starting to pile in. Hey everybody, I'll just say hey everybody. I've already got a chat screen full of people over here. It's good seeing everybody again. What's new? What's going on? How should a map look on a Gen 3? Is that my wife? Is my wife watching my live stream? Let's just go ahead and block her. Hide user from channel, put user in timeout. DMV should be semi-smooth. It's kind of subjective. Like, it depends on like the mods and stuff like that. But the smoother the better, as long as you can go smoother and keep everything happy. Anybody been using the standalone logging features lately? It's not really been working for me for some reason. Is anybody else having these issues? I've tried it twice and I've not paid attention. First time I thought I set the triggers up to do the continue acceleration for 1 second, whatever the streetcar default settings are. Didn't get anything. So the next time I plugged it in, I hit the button, went for a drive, and on the way back I didn't hit the button and nothing. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. If it's, I just wanted to make sure. I was glad to see that. I mean, I've got it to work all right in some situations, but trying to tune a small block Ford with a Holley Terminator, no IAC manual, no AC, any tips. With an IAC, like, are you having idle issues or like any tips in general? I mean, it's Holley Terminator, man. Make your learn table big. Give it a lot of room. Transfer it over a couple times, and then smash that learn table down smaller and smaller. And then the closed loop compensation, keep that small. Ideally, you should be able to get that into a pretty small range, and it should be driving good there. You know, I started at like 50% plus minus error whenever I first fired up to give it a chance to catch it, let it learn, transfer that data in. Nothing wrong with the old MPVI1 standard, man. Yeah, and that's why I'm thinking, James, that whenever I tried pushing the button to start it, I probably just didn't get the button pushed well enough. I don't know, because it was on the Dodge, the Viper, and you can't get your head underneath there to see the blinking light. Desensitized knock sensor on Gen 4. You have to adjust the initial level, min level, and the multipliers for each cylinder. I just do the multipliers for each cylinder, Schmidt. Should be enough. Essentially, the initial level and min level and stuff like that are calculated, and then the multipliers are applied to that level. Having trouble with no 8 Silverado. Had a 4.3, swapped a 6 with a 6L80 into it. Been a truck from hell. What kind of issues you having, Chris? Tuning cold start on LS3 427. You know, cold start on the LS3 platform like the E38 is pretty straightforward. A lot of it's going to be in that cranking VE table. If the thing's got a cam, you got to take out quite a bit of percentage in that. On the E38, it's probably 100 across the board. Drop it down to 80, start there, see if it fires better. If it warm starts all right, has cold start issues, you can look into the fuel A time multiplier table underneath the amount of time, and it's an enrichment table there. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's like at this angle, pointed down, James. Well, it's slow. So yeah, it's, I don't know. I ordered. Has anybody tried the Zytronics widebands before? ZEI Tronic. Oh, is it with an X? Oh yeah, ZEITRONIX. Boop 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 boop. Yeah, check burst not retarded if you haven't already. Truck is bone stock with headers. Flash with an MDI-2 stock 6 layer with 6L8 then tuned. It kept getting a P0606. What's the 606? Engine diagnostics. It's probably not good. I think I've got a Dodge opened up here, but since it is an SAE standard, we'll see if it's got 606. Processor error? You know, James, on the glow shift stuff, they're a little bit cheaper, but I don't know that they're worth the money. I'm still looking for a replacement, you know, for AEM's 300300 since our Holly bottom out. So we'll see. What am I looking for? P0606 ECM PCM processor. I mean, let me ask you this, Chris. Whenever you flashed it, did you write entire or just config? Ended up being a throttle table. That's interesting. I've not heard that. Usually, of course, you're on, it said what, E38? I'd be worried that it's actually gone bad. Yeah, Holly bought AEM quite a while ago. Which is funny because after they bought AEM, people started noticing that the widebands were coming shipped with sensors that weren't branded with Bosch anymore. I can't right now, man. Surfer Jag's asking, can you recommend a wideband? I can't right now. You know, the 300300 was the go-to for forever. I just don't know. And the implementation of it's so nice. And then their OBD2 one is freaking great if you got an OBD2 vehicle like a 2008 Beyond. Like, I just worry because there's signs that the quality, they're cutting corners now that Holly owns them. Because I'm sure Holly already had a pipeline of a manufacturer in China that was building widebands for them to include in all of their standalones and stuff. And we're seeing those being put into the box with the AEM gauges. And so I'm guessing nothing's going to change on the electronics part of the gauge. So the 300300 and the 300334 should be fine. Now, if AEM comes out with a new wideband, that's whenever I would get a little bit concerned because it's then in development with Holly and not as, you know, just through AEM. Start flash was GM tool, so it was a right entire. Okay. But then when I went to tune, the code started popping up after the tune. I don't know, Chris. Like, you've done what I would have done. The only other thing, no, ECM PCM processor. I would go into Tech Connect and dig more into that DTC and see what the actual the factory troubleshooting steps are, and see if it gives some insight as to something that could be wrong or something could have gotten messed up. Could be a issue with the ground, you know. That's one thing I would double check is all of my grounds, because you might have a bad ground, might be getting interference that's causing the ECU to mess up. When in doubt, add more grounds to the motor. You know, motor to chassis. Can't have enough of those. You know, P&W, with my AEMs, I've had no issues running the cheap hands-on sensors. They may die a little bit quicker, but, you know, when you can buy a 4-pack for the price of one sensor and know that you're going to get a couple months out of it, I don't have any issues with that. What does a transient multiplier and EQ ratio table under knock sensor level? Asking me complicated questions. You guys are getting smarter, which means you're asking more complicated questions. Transient multiplier. I'm not looking at the same ECU that you are. What platform, Schmidt? So I can open up a tune and look at it. I'd be interested in replacing the ECM and see if it crops back up. That's, you know, that would be one of my go-to, especially since you can get E38s for pretty cheap. So maybe, yeah, go ahead and swap it out. You get stung on the credits, but let's be honest, it's only 2 credits on those, so it's not bad anyways. But my bells are ringing saying there's probably a grounding issue or something. Tune the math table on my boosted 2011 Silverado 6.2, but when I go full throttle, it throws me into reduced engine power for barrel math correlation. Brandon, have you already maxed those tables out under engine diagnostics? Excuse me as I burp up my tea. So, it's probably a P0068. And it's not uncommon to have to max those things out. Ah, sweet DMC. Like to hear it, man. He said customer came in Saturday, pick up his Ella swap. I just finished. Thanks to you. Well, thanks to you for being a continued supporter. 67. E67. I've got almost everything right here. Except that my mouse is not working right. Let's see. E67. How about ZR1? Fuel transient. Where are we looking at? Which ones did you ask about? These still don't look to have the ones on there. E67. Yeah, that's an E67. Good to know. Current Bosch sensor is 4 years old. On the C5. Just had a dyno last week with quarter point on the dyno. Multi-$1,000 wideband. Within a quarter point, well, I mean, P&W, was it in the tailpipe or was it actually placed up front in the collector? Yeah, Brandon, that'll solve it. That's common whenever you go boosted on these things. Had a bad cam position sensor, replaced it, now have a P0011 cam position sensor over advanced, permanent. Truck runs good, but if I read DS... Oh, it just says permanent. That'll go away in time, Dennis. If you get through enough drive cycles, the permanents will go away now that you've replaced it. Nothing to worry about. Yeah, exactly. No, the country club... the country... Don't even talk about the country club. You gotta remember, country club... I tried to swap in an E67 or an E38, I don't even remember, but found out that the cams had a funky cam. It was a 24X with a 4X cam, which has never been supported on GM platform. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong place. No wonder. Probably help. Oh, transient and EQ ratio on the multipliers. Well, so what happens is you'll notice EQ ratio is 1. So it basically that's doing nothing. Much like the cylinder multipliers, you get your initial level that's used and then it applies like your cylinder multipliers. Then it's going to apply the EQ ratio multiplier. And then if you're in a transient fuel situation, it's going to apply that transient multiplier, which really bumps it up because it's expecting that Not necessarily that you're going to have a lean spot, because if your transient style ain't good, it's expecting that the engine's going to torque really hard because you just gunned it. And it's trying to filter out that brr. So if you're getting some transient knock and you think it's false knock, I would suggest crawling underneath your car and fixing whatever's rattling around. But if you can't find anything rattling around, you can use the transient threshold multiplier. Bigger numbers are going to dial the sensor back. So, good question, Schmidt. Oh, dude. It was so Frankensteined. And listen, it was Frankenstein before I started Frankenstein it, because whenever I got in there, I ended up taking the factory harness out and putting a new factory harness in because I butchered it so bad. I spent weeks in the fender well of that thing, repinning ECUs, all that stuff. Yeah, I had a Holley Terminator on it. Yep. And so I finally was like, I'm going to sell this thing. I can't sell this thing with this harness like that. So I go to pull the factory harness out, and there'd been a spot in there where apparently in storage a squirrel or a rat had gotten in there and chewed on the factory harness, which probably wasn't helping, with all this stuff. But they had fixed it with duct tape. So I spent about 2 weeks replacing the harness. Oh, man. That was quite the project. Like, some of the wonky stuff I had to do to get the roof to still work and pass messages to the, I had to intercept messages because I was using a standalone. But sometimes wide open throttle, just focus on your cylinder multipliers. You guys hear those? The kids? So. Well, funny that you say that, MK, because I actually was talking to a couple guys this week about some CAN bus stuff. Joel, no, you couldn't. Maybe, theoretically. Okay, so it's dual overhead cam motor. It's North Star. And so I could have upgraded the cams to a later generation North Star that was on the E67s. But you can't find them. You can't find anything for stuff like that. Like, I looked for just the front cam, variable cam controllers and stuff like that had the risers on there for the cam timing and stuff, and it was just like, yeah, I probably could have done it if I wanted to spend $5,000 to get a stock car running on an ECU. And so it was just easier at that point in time to play around with the Holley and then see if it'd work as a piggyback, which it worked great as a piggyback. And essentially, the factory ECU was still in there, controlling everything. All the gauges worked, all that jazz, even though I ended up putting a Holley dash in there for no reason whatsoever. But all the factory gauges worked, everything worked. And then the Holley was just doing all the fueling and spark stuff. Yeah, saw that. Saw Mr. Rabbit's post the other day about Atco Racing. That was his home track. Steve, he's a good guy. He's got a cool Grand National and a Camaro that are super fast. Run 9s, maybe even into the 8s nowadays. Does drag and drive. Well, yeah. North Star V's, the supercharged ones, were E67s. So the year that I bought mine, I did not realize that the 4.6 liter North Star was on a old ECU platform that wasn't supported. See you, DMC. Any of the supercharged ones though came out on E67s. Oh man, sorry to hear that, Brandon. That's one of the first things. If I end up doing a retune for somebody, one of the first things I do is open up knock sensors and just look to make sure those things have not been maxed out, and then check the high and low octane tables to make sure they're not the same. So, oh yeah, man. I got into that motor so many times, top end, like tearing the intake manifold and stuff off. I got really good at it. So I could understand that if you spend enough time working on it, it wouldn't be that bad. But like every time I take the intake manifold off and the starter was sitting there, I was just like, this is terrible. Yeah, mine wasn't a V. They were still expensive. You know, they never really, I mean, they've lost value, obviously, but they've held their value significantly better than the non-Vs. So, oh, back to this Zytronics. Does anybody use these guys? Anybody? I ordered one of these, this ZT4 dual wideband air fuel ratio meter. The dogs are just going crazy. They're just going crazy. I ordered one of these dual units. It's got, okay, 2 widebands, 2 narrow band simulators, and then 2 analog outputs. And you can get it with a gauge. Well, I didn't order it with the gauge because they don't make gauge pods for the Viper. I'll be interested to see. I still don't like bringing analogs into the ProLink harness. I just don't think it's the best way of bringing data across. Dogs listening to my dogs. You know, I know it's not going to happen now. What I'd love to see is Holly. I'm just getting bad. I'd love to see a AEM gauge, you know, like the 300334 without the gauge, like the inline style, but OBD2. Yeah, exactly. GM design starter, you know you're going to have to replace it one of these days. Hey, listen. They were way ahead of the times with the Hot V. They started with starters, and then they started putting turbos in there instead. Tucker, you're welcome. Sweet. Thanks for watching, man. He's added E85 support on a Shelby. It's not that, you know, it's kind of a cool way that they do it. And to see it actually work after you put all those tables in, and then you throw a little ethanol in to test it out and see it making the adjustments, it's like, man, this is an interesting way. I wish more manufacturers did a better job at integrating that. Yeah, I mean, it's all but gone nowadays. Oh, man. Waiting for HB tuners to unlock Indian 22 Chief tuning. It's right. It's got to be right around the corner, right? Has anybody signed up for their beta stuff? I've not heard back. I signed up for their beta. The beta program to unlock new vehicles. But I have not heard back from them yet. I was wondering if anybody else has done it. Yeah, ICT car guy. I'm like kind of in the same boat as you. Worried about the flat plane crank. They've used the flat plane crank in the past on race cars, but those motors were being built by Pratt, you know, not being built by GM. So a mass produced, even in the limited numbers that the Z06 is, I would definitely give it a model year or two to iron the bugs out before I jumped on. Now, I agree, Brandon. I love the V. And it's just one of the best looking cars ever, in my opinion. But, I mean, I'm such a C6 nut. So let me ask you this, Brad. Is the Indians, have they changed anything? They're only showing support from 14 to 20. Did they go to a new ECU in 21? Are we just waiting for verification? Is that all we're waiting for? Well, I'm guessing that they had to have changed in 21 because they've got support for 6 years on here. And it ends in 20. Fly Pushing Cranky isn't more worried about the cam. Well, I mean, it's just the platform in general, Charles. Like, yep. That's old school. The old HT4100 Cadillac V8 displacement, the original displacement on demand. That did not work. Any more drag and drives planned in the future? Next year. Not this year. I'm glad you said something, Pete and W. So a couple things. On the Nova. Got new rear tires. They showed up today. So I can replace the bad one that got destroyed whenever the wheel broke. I threw the bad one on the rim just so I could get thing down to storage. I also today shipped the new intake manifold down to Wilson to get it converted for fuel injection. So, those are the big things. Of course, I got to get the overdrive installed also, but those would be the big things right there. On top of it, I got new rear tires for the Viper because I've got a set of new wheels coming for the Viper from VT Forged. Super excited. There's a good chance I'm going to be at Holly Mo Party this year in September. So, pretty good chance. For the Viper on the tire, I went with the Toyo R888s. Basically competition tires, super high performance tire, wherever you want to call it. Because the thing's never going to be driven in the rain. Honestly, the thing's never going to be driven more than like 100 miles at a time. But I will be getting to the, yes, loud. Smoke Monster is loud. I will be getting to the Nova very soon. Hopefully before, fall comes around. I do have, I told you guys I got the new transmission put in the Typhoon, and I've been having issues. And I can't get a straight answer on this thing because people are like, oh, it's internally balanced or it's neutral balanced harmonic balancer, but it's a weighted flex plate. And of course, me like an idiot, when I'm jerking the old stuff off, I threw it away. I knew the flex plate needed a weight. So I've got that right. But whenever it locks up, it's got this weird shimmy. And I'm wondering if the balancer is actually not neutral balance, because if you look at pictures, the backside of it's drilled out on one side and it's keyed, which means it's probably not a neutral balance. So I'm going to hope I've got a new one already. I'm hoping that swapping the balancer out and then re-enabling lockup, that won't be there, so I can actually work on Typhoon issues that I care about, because if not, it might have to pull a super auto and get lit on fire. Man, it's getting a little warm in the office tonight. What'd I miss? Thanks, Tucker. Let's see here. Yep. Okay. Everybody, hey, man, we got so many smart people in the chat. They're just answering questions. That's what I love to see. So, yeah, we'll be doing a drag and drive event. I don't know which ones next year. Not looked into it that far, but not this year. I'm actually headed back to Oklahoma for a couple days starting this weekend. I'll be back before the live show next Thursday, so we'll still have a live show, but I've got to wrap up some more business in Oklahoma, and at that point in time, I am almost out of vacation. We're only in July, so, yeah. Yeah, do you happen to know how much about what I should do for a B1325 device power voltage something. Feel like I'm fixing to trace wires out. Let me look it up, but it's a body code. That's not going to be in this list. Yeah, that's a BCM code, being that's a B. It might be tough, Brian. Sorry. Does your code scanner that you're using, does it do freeze frames? Does it do data streaming where you can actually see the voltages on your BCM? Because it's going to be a voltage related to your BCM, but will be my first time at Beach Bend. Yes, I've not been to Bowling Green, so St. Louis, from where I'm at, is kind of out of the way. That's what I'm talking about, Jerry. But I haven't seen much Mopar tuning. Will that be something you'll touch later on? Yeah, okay, so here's the thing, Charles. Depending on what generation of Mopars it is, it's very different. So up until a certain point, Mopars tune just like GMs. One-on-one. Like, very, very, very close. Now, I'll do some stuff on the Viper, but the Viper is unique in its ECU, and it tunes like a third generation GM. There's no other Mopar platform that's like that. So a lot of the tables that we tune on the Viper, you're not going to see anywhere else. And a lot of that has to do running dual mass airflow sensors. Now you get into the neural networking stuff later on, and see, Andrew, it's a little bit of a different story, but I'm going to talk about some of that very soon. In the next couple months, I'm going to be doing some videos on that, talking more in depth about how the neural networking is being used and using the trainer and stuff like that. So keep your eyes peeled. But listen, it is 8:30. I have not ate supper. I'm sweating. You can't tell because the light is set up to hide my sweat. But I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody. We've already got 20 likes over there, so I'm not even going to ask you guys for likes. That means go add more likes. So, but you guys know the drill. We'll see you next Thursday. Everybody have a safe weekend. Get some tuning in if it's beautiful in your area. If it's hot, check your tunes. Make sure that you're not having any issues there. You know, double check everything. It's a good thing. Every couple months, break out your scanner. Scan, data log. Check it out. Don't ever think that your tune is done. You're always 99% done when you're done. There's always that 1% that you can get tweaked at the end. So, but you guys know the drill. Thanks for stopping by, Garage. Remember, ABT, always be tuning.